All right, everybody.
Good morning and welcome to the official ADHD podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Bonacorso, and my co-host,
Pat Greeno.
Today we have our very special guest, J.R. Alli, Toronto's #1 filmmaker. How are you doing today, J.R.?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be on this podcast. I haven't done one before, so it should be fun.
We're all buzzing off of 3 coffees here.
Oh, yeah.
I also love Mitch's alliteration on the good morning to the ADHD podcast.
Yeah.
It's a good intro. So I would imagine by now, a lot of people now know who you are. It's pretty obvious in the film community. And I think a very important question would be more or less how you even got into it.
Yeah.
Or content in general, really. Because, I mean, like, Mitch and I started on YouTube, more or less. You know, some people don't even start on YouTube. Some people start elsewhere. But how did you even get into filmmaking in general?
Yeah, I feel like my whole story when it comes to filmmaking is really unorthodox in terms of, like, you know, people always are like, yeah, I picked up a camera, I went to film school, this and that. But for me, like, I was a kid who grew up on YouTube, like you guys said. You know, you made a lot of content on YouTube. For me, it's funny, like, I think even when I was like around 8 years old, that's when I started to really actively watch YouTube, and then I realized I wanted to, you know, make videos too.
8 years old, eh?
What kind of content did you watch then?
Oh, it was probably
I
really
watched a lot
cringy.
of like Shay
Cringy.
Carl.
Oh yeah.
The Shaytards.
The Shaytards. That was like, that's such an OG.
Dude.
Oh,
Dark.
yeah. I went through so many different phases. It's interesting. Like, I think YouTube helped me. It helped me learn a lot, especially when it came to like just growing up, which was really weird to have a kid like that young have access to like the internet.
Yeah.
It was a little weird, but also that's where I learned a lot of stuff. So yeah, I went through different phases. I had gaming. I loved gaming. I was like huge into that. I made videos with my friends. And it was only until my last year of high school, grade 12, when I was like, okay, like, filmmaking was something that was always on and off in my life. So I always did it. Either one year I'd do it a little bit or I'd do it a lot. And I decided I wanted to start making videos in the summer, just so I had a reason to go out and kind of just make the most of my summer. And so I didn't tell anyone at school. And then kind of during that year, I started to roll with it, made videos kind of behind my house. That was like my main escape. Kind of like access to nature. Like, that was what kept me going to keep making videos. And I rolled with it. And then from then on, for like the next couple of years, I kind of just put all my time into it and just kept making videos. Yeah.
And with that, is that how you got into film school?
Yeah. Up until grade 12, the end of into high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, which is really funny. Like,
J.R. Alli representing you.
yeah.
Let's go.
And then I saw you needed to be in school for like more than 6 years.
Shows up in the courtroom with an A7 S3 and a Moza gimbal.
Good morning.
in a briefcase.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I actually used one of my YouTube videos, my early YouTube videos, talking about my vision. I just threw that in my submissions for like OCAD University, Ryerson, and I got accepted to like all of those. And that was like a huge like eye opener for me. Like, I realized like maybe I could do something with this. And I ended up going to Ryerson for less than a semester.
Oh yeah, your situation when it comes to school and film school. I remember you mentioned to me at some point that it wasn't necessarily for you. You said that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the film school side of things and maybe?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way I found this out was I knew something was off. I didn't know what exactly it was, but something didn't feel right going to film school. And I knew that if I wasn't 100% invested into this route, then there was something wrong. And I didn't want to go 3 years into a program and blow this money and then realize that I wasn't 100% confident in what I was doing. And the big giveaway for me was that I wasn't surrounded by people who were actively creating outside of school. And that was a huge thing I was looking for. And maybe there was 4 or 5 individuals who would create things outside of class, but it was a lot of people who watched movies and a lot of people who didn't create things. And for me, someone who just learned hands-on, like everything I learned was through YouTube tutorials. Yeah. I learned how to become a better cinematographer from just going out and shooting things. That was when I realized I needed to put myself in a position where I was surrounded by people who went the extra mile and just did stuff because they loved it, not because they were told to do it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's super interesting too, that somebody that, you know, tried out the film school, realized that it wasn't for them, can now actually go to a platform like YouTube and now like educate. Like now, you know, at the end of some of your videos and even some of your videos, you'll do tutorials on how to do certain things. Yeah.
What would you say to people that are considering dropping out in that position? Do you ultimately recommend that for everyone?
That's the thing. I'm always really hesitant on what I say when it comes to film school, because I feel like it can help and it can work for you. But I think you need to have a good conscious, like you need to be really strong in your decisions. Meaning, if you decide to go to film school and you feel like something's not right and you feel like this isn't the path for you, you need to actively make sure that you make that decision to either drop out if you feel like it's right. Because what happens is, like, I feel a lot of people have pressures from their family and a lot of other like people around them, and a lot of negative like connotations to like to dropping out and being a dropout. But like you said, social media has given this alternate route, and I saw the opportunity. And I think without social media, I wouldn't have dropped out. Right. But I saw that there was something happening online, and I knew that I would regret it for the rest of my life. And as you know, as serious as that is, I saw it as an opportunity. If I didn't take it now, then I might miss my chance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. One thing I was going to talk about as far as your editing goes and your storytelling, like your editing is eminently amazing, but the storytelling arguably is the most important part of the filmmaking process. One of the things I was wondering too, and I'm sure many people are, is how did you develop your skills as a storyteller? And I'm sure you didn't just start and you were just really good at telling stories, or maybe you were, but how did you build on that skill?
Yeah, I think it's multiple different things. In the beginning, when I wasn't able to travel, I think traveling is a huge thing. That's where I learned a lot, and from the outside world, gaining new perspectives, kind of experiencing different things. But before I could travel, it was really important for me to tell stories about things that meant a lot to me. And a lot of people miss that. Like they always push to make things that will get the most amount of clicks, that maybe it doesn't mean a lot to them, but it's so important. And for me, like one of the biggest examples is like one of the first videos I made was talking about my eyesight. You know, it's something so simple, but it meant a lot to me because I knew it could affect other people, but I also knew that it was something that I connected with and that hopefully other people could. And I think what people miss the mark, especially in this filmmaking industry online on YouTube, is they miss the opportunity to tell stories that mean something to them. Because when you have nothing, when you're not able to travel, when the stories aren't coming to you, you have to be creative and you have to make sure you're telling stories that mean something to you so that people can connect to who you are as an individual. So yeah, when I started, I just was really passionate about having my own voice. So all my first videos, I always made it a point to make sure I was the one talking in my videos, and I was the one voicing it. And then as I started to be able to travel, those were the experiences, being able to connect with people who had similar visions and see new cultures. That's where I started to become a better storyteller.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's a great point. And one of my favorite videos of you, obviously is a bias, but is your Collective Iris video that you did of Pat, and Pat sharing his story. And it's something that Pat and I think is very important, and it's something that we do want to discuss in much detail throughout these podcasts. I think it's very important to do that, and I think some people think that adopting that vulnerability isn't cool or isn't trendy and doesn't get those clicks, and I think they think it's counterintuitive, but I think you are a perfect example of someone who like really embraces that vulnerability. And like, I think, Pat, I would love to hear you speaking to this, the engagement and the feedback that you got following JR helping you share your story.
Yeah, I mean, when we originally thought about doing the project, you know, JR had came to me, and I thought that it was just such a good idea to voice the whole mental health thing and to bring it to life visually. Like, I could not have done that the justice. You know what I mean? Like, I could not have done that justice. But to be able to open up and talk about something that was heavily affecting me at that time was just, it made me feel better to open up with the vulnerability, because it's just, you can't always post pictures of yourself shirtless on a G-Wagon. It just doesn't work like that.
No,
right.
It just doesn't work like that. Like, we have problems, dude. Like, we all have
100%.
issues, you know, we
Demons.
all, so we all have demons. It's just, that's just the way that it is. And, you know,
Were you scared? Were you
I was
scared to open
terrified.
up at
Remember when we
first?
were sitting on that bench in the cold?
Yep.
And it was like -20, and I was like, man, how am I going to word that, like, I was in a dark place and that like I didn't want to live anymore, and it was just like a very like serious thing, and I'm like sitting on this cold bench, and like, but it felt good to get it out. And then when people were messaging me saying that, you know, that video inspired them and that they purposely didn't do certain things, whether it be self-harm or even like to the extreme, even if it was like suicidal, it helped a lot of people. And yeah, a lot of people messaged me about that. Made me feel pretty pretty
so
happy
special.
about that. Yeah.
I think it's also such, like, these topics are things that are so fresh that people are talking about now. You got to be really careful the way you put it, and the way you tell the story, and you make sure you kind of do it justice, and you do it in the right way. And that was something that I always, when I reached out to you, I knew specifically that the difficult part would be being able to tell it properly and giving it justice and making sure that it was done right. So yeah.
Unfortunately now too, mental health is something that people almost like to use as a trend topic.
Yep.
And so trying to make something that's genuine, that comes from the heart and isn't necessarily just like a, hey guys, you know, like, here's me and my mental health problems. You know,
Right.
it's difficult to create something genuine, and you definitely did that justice as far as that edit goes, for sure.
And more so than justice, you're just embracing it. I think some people choose that they need to find like a cure to mental illness, whereas you can embrace it. And I mean, that's one of our foundations for this podcast, coming from someone who was, you know, clinically diagnosed with ADHD. I think a lot of individuals in my life growing up, I would say in the educational system, highlighted the cons of that. And sometimes it can be hard to face that adversity, but embracing your shortcomings, sharing your story in a captivating manner, and embracing can be extremely powerful, and it can help a lot of people connect to your story, your movement, and ultimately make you feel a lot better about whatever is going on in your head.
100%. And that was like even my brand, even to begin with. I was telling you about the videos I started to make. I always tried to look at things that made me different and things that around me that were different, but always like spinning it in a positive light, and like talking about how like mental illness, you know, you can see it in a certain way, and even like when we made that video, you specifically said that, you know, it never, like, it can get easier, but it's always there with you. And that was like so important for us to even talk and like mention that. And that it's not like it's just the over, like, you know, the videos at the end it wraps up and it's like, that's it, I'm good.
It's like,
no,
not like that.
it's a battle every day. It's something that you,
it's like a way of telling between the genuine aspect and just the real, the reality of it, you know, because some people will be like, and happy ending to the video, good, like that's the end, you know. And it's like, no, like it's like a daily thing that you think about, and coming up with ways to battle that in a very positive way is just ideally what you should be doing. But is there any video projects that you've done thus far that you think has inspired people more than others, as far as like, what do you think is your most inspiring project to this date, your personal favorite?
I think it's so funny. My content is at such a weird point, meaning I feel like I'm always trying to transition into making meaningful stories, because I feel like sometimes I get lost, especially in the in pushing for content that's going to get the most clicks, and I feel like I have two sides of content, meaning I have these videos like that I know that are going to get a decent amount of following and a decent amount of views on, like my New York video, like my London video, hitting on cities
Bangers.
that are kind of just, you know, focused on that editing, focused on like quick pace stuff,
just hardcore bangers. tried to make an ear like explosion, didn't.
And then videos that mean the most to me are like the Guatemala video, you know, my Iceland video, like sharing the story, sharing someone else's story, but also like raw adventure. Like those are the types of videos that I really, really love, and I want to tell more stories in, I think.
What did you learn from the Guatemala trip? That's something that we were talking about earlier that I think is extremely special, and like not a lot of people think that they can create meaningful content in those scenarios, and you definitely demonstrated it as possible.
Yeah, I think it's just that type of content, focusing on the right way to travel. I feel like when I see a lot of travel stuff online, unfortunately it's being spun and pushed in this direction that it kind of sucks. It's more so focused on yourself and, you know, turning the camera towards yourself. But I think you can find a balance where, you know, it's showing your story, it's showing what you're traveling and what you're doing, but also authentically showing the culture and the different perspectives that are there while you're traveling. I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Yeah,
for sure. Going off of actually your locations too, as far as like each of your videos that you do, obviously they can't all have the exact same pacing. They can't all have the exact same style of editing, you know. Not every single video can just be a machine gun of transitions in purple and glitching. It's just, you know what I mean? It's not realistic.
Fit. Yeah.
So,
100%.
Yeah. How do you deal with people, I guess, more or less egging you on to maybe only stick with one particular style and not, you know, branching out and trying different things? Because I know fan bases will do that.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing because it's always teetering the line between what do you take as criticism, what do you take as what people want to see, and what do you know in your heart you want to make. And that's like something I've been trying to battle with. It's like I still get those comments, and the comments that hurt the most, or that try to get to me the most, is the comments that are like, yeah, this wasn't better than the one that you made before. And it's like, it sucks that people have that expectation that each video needs to top the one before. Each video needs to be crazy, because I think, you know, as you're making stuff online and as you're sharing things about yourself, the thing is you're growing as a person. You're not staying stagnant. And so it sucks that people think that you need to make the same stuff. And I think the way I just go about trying to deal with it is just, I try to block some of it, and some of it I try and take in as criticism. But I feel like if you try and please everyone, it's just, it doesn't.
And it's tough to draw that line, to be able to like see what, like, I know it kind of sounds bad, but to really dictate what comments mean more than others sounds wrong, but it's also important, because if you have a troll in the comment section and they're saying like, why isn't Ontario a machine gun of glitching? And you're like, well, it's because that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm sorry that my Toronto video and my Guatemala video are two separate vibes entirely, you know? So taking in what is important and like choosing what to dismiss is also like a tough line to draw. But even speaking on transitions, you got a lot of people that love your transitions, dude.
We even ran a poll just like before we started this podcast. A lot of the questions are really technical, which, you know, it's
nice.
It's
perfect.
It kind of sucks that it's really going down that route, but
I think it's interesting, as someone who's kind of on the outside of all this, to see how much of a niche you have in terms of the technical aspect, yet you're so good at sharing stories. And it's like so many people choose to prioritize that because like sort of the community you're in. But nonetheless, like, I think we were talking about earlier, it's just valuable for you to have that tool ready, so that when you do 100%. Continue to tell your stories, you just have that on the go.
Exactly. And I think it's just not feeding into that demand to talk about your transitions and make tutorials about it, but more so just using it as an advantage to make videos, and just make sure you're steering your content in the right direction. So like for me, it's like, what do I value the most? And it's like, it's storytelling. And I'm still getting better at storytelling every day. I think that's what every filmmaker
constantly
wants
working on it.
100%. And so it's just making, like you said, having those tools but not making it the highlight fully for videos.
Back to another thing I think is funny is that people will actually recreate your transitions, and people will actually take the sound effects from your videos for example, New York, you'll hear this like whatever. I hope that sound was really epic in the mic, but essentially,
good morning.
People will literally take your sound effects, like your whooshes, you know, whenever a bike goes by. That's the classic, is the bike. The bike goes by, and you'll actually hear the song that you used in the background. Cringe, dude. Yikes.
The thing is, it's weird, but people think that's fine, and it's interesting, but
goals.
Like they don't understand how much work goes into sound. Like
it's content goals.
It's like it's one thing to use the same song as someone uses, but to use the sound effects, it's like it's I literally
fully
put 300 sound effects into a video. It's like just rip the whole sound bite.
Let's just take the video.
Weird. It's weird. Yeah.
To play the devil's advocate, I actually did watch one of the videos, and it was like how to edit like you.
Yeah.
And one of the comments that I thought was okay was discussing how learning is about stealing until you develop your own tools. They were talking about they cited that you are inspired by in a particular that we all know of, and a lot of people are inspired by you. And the video was saying that by adopting your style, it's a way for people to adopt their own style. What do you guys think about that? Constantly evolving your style.
I think constantly evolving is a good thing too. I think there's definitely two sides as far as making tutorials on something that you've kind of pioneered and other people making tutorials on something that you've pioneered. I think it's a good thing that people take other people's ideas and use it as influence. But I think from the creator end too, it's a little bit frustrating as far as like now you're kind of like, I don't want to use the word exposed, but like it's good because it kind of puts you under the challenge of now I need to come up with something entirely different in order to not do the same things. Like for example, that guy that made the video on your transition pack, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. You've put a transition pack out on the internet. I'm just going to do something completely different now, right? It kind of forces that change, which I think is good. Yeah. Ultimately.
I think too, it's like a lot of people think that, and the thing is, I don't openly come out with like saying, my style is my style. Yeah. The thing is, I feel like, and this is how I learned, is like when I first started, I was inspired by a lot of people. Now, because I've been trying to kind of establish myself, I've moved my inspirations and moved how I get motivated and how I develop my style to unorthodox types of creative fields. But before, I watched so much YouTube, and the thing was, and I think what a lot of like young filmmakers need to understand is it is okay to take from different people, but it's how you use it, and how you alter it in your own way to make it your own. And I think my style was a mosh pit of different things, but now because I've been trying to kind of create my own name and create my own style, I've been pushing towards finding creativity and finding inspiration from music, from books, from movies. I didn't watch a lot of movies growing up, but now I try.
Your music taste as far as your edits go are completely different than anything I've heard from a lot of other people. And one of the things I was actually wondering,
I don't really like those EDM bangers.
Yeah, you're not much of a chain smoker. It's like, let's fucking go. So essentially it's like, it's not easy to find the music that you're getting, obviously, because if not, then people would be just putting Odez on absolutely everything. Like, they'd be ripping your songs and stuff. But how is it that you even find your music? I think you've once talked about maybe diving deep into SoundCloud, or you were saying something about deep diving into that situation. So how do you find your music generally?
Like you said, SoundCloud's huge right now for me, because it's literally just diving deep into finding artists who don't really have a huge following, because you'll find like, especially, this is where like there's so much crossover between the different fields, meaning when you find an artist and like a musical artist that's really passionate about their work and who doesn't have a huge following, it means they're trying different things, they're experimenting, they're pushing their own art,
creating.
Yes, exactly.
Similar time that you're in too. Yeah.
Right. So when you find these low-key underground artists, they're usually making music that sounds different, and that's where you find it. So I'll find like a kind of like a style of artist that I really like, and then I'll look through who they're following, I'll look through what they're liking, and then I'll keep going deeper until I find these deep things. Dive. And it's funny though, like I have like 330 followers on SoundCloud.
Let's go. They're trying to rip your music now too.
Yeah, so I don't retweet. I don't I don't like save the music I'm about to use, because I'm like, I'm not trying to. I don't want people to bite that.
They're like, shit, I can't take it directly out of his video. Oh god, like got to go to his SoundCloud and rip all of the music there now. Yes. Heaven forbid you put your sound effects up on SoundCloud. Holy shit.
Seth Godin in the Icarus Deception. Not too sure if you've heard of him, but he always says that every artist is a fraud. Everyone initially starts out as a fraud. So like your ideas certainly parallel his when it comes to that. Like, you know, everyone starts out as like essentially a fraud, from like comedians to writers to creators. And it's, you have to transcend that and transcend the adversity of being called a fraud to actually become your own.
100%.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, speaking on a lot of different artists too. I mean, the Toronto community as far as film goes. There's a lot of us. I kind of wanted to know a bit of your opinions as far as, you know, is like pros and cons of the Toronto community. Is there things you like, don't like about the community, and what your thoughts on the community in general are in Toronto?
Who's your beef?
Yeah,
just calling out.
He's gonna start firing shots.
Yeah, this is where the freestyle comes in.
Swaying the more.
I'm ready.
Don't sue.
Jay Bradley,
Junior Hassan.
I feel really indifferent about it because I thought going into it when I started out, like as a young filmmaker, I'm like, you know, I feel like everyone kind of like likes each other and stuff, but it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people want to hide this, but it's like, the cool thing is it's like, it's not in your face, meaning like people don't call each other out, especially in filming, but there's an underlying, like,
I might soon now that we have a vocal
like, you
platform.
know, like, ooh, you know, this person doesn't fuck with this person, and you can tell, and it's so interesting, but it's a little slimy at times, I feel like.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, it's like that, and maybe it's like that in other industries, maybe it's like that in other fields,
100%,
but I think people need to realize that communities are a lot smaller than you think, and even when you think that someone doesn't know you, they do.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's the thing.
Have you had any problems with anyone in the community?
I think it's interesting. I had like sort of an epiphany this summer where I always felt like I was chasing the approval from other people, and I felt like I needed to prove myself, and I felt like I needed to more than other people needed to, and I felt like maybe it was because I was doing things a little differently, maybe, or maybe the way I looked, the way I talked, the way I did things were unorthodox. And so this summer I came to a realization that like now I've done enough. I've tried to push myself enough where like the people around me, my peers, obviously it's good to know you have the approval from them, but it's also not like the end all thing for me. Now, like, I feel like the battle is just within myself, like trying to be better than I was the day before. Do
you have any like pet peeves as far as the film community goes? Like people, for example, for me, I gotta love this content is you're going for a nice stroll through Toronto and then you see Graffiti Alley, the best content creation spot on
I can't
planet
lie.
Earth.
I've used Graffiti Alley before.
Hey, if you want to
I've whipped the drone through there a couple
You whipped
times.
that's already kind of risky though. Like, they're like, I'm gonna take my iPhone X to Graffiti Alley, and JR's like, nope, I'm flying a Mavic.
I straight up
through the alley.
No, dude, it was a Phantom 3. That clunky,
the one with the red strips. Is it like the old school?
Yeah.
Before like the flight rules.
Yeah. No like.
No restriction.
Yeah.
No sensors.
No sensors. Nothing.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. I think so. Tell us about the flight restrictions for those who don't know about that and aren't in the video community. Like talk about drones being literally unable to fly in Toronto.
Yeah, so they're pretty illegal to say the most part. I wouldn't say that I have the most knowledge on the actual FAA paperwork side of things, but I do know there's a certain distance from the city that you're allowed to fly in. There's certain heights. There's certain can't fly it around people. There's very specific things like that. However, for those who want the bangers, I still see people flying.
Bangers.
Dude, I saw a kid flying near the CN Tower the other day, which is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Like heaven forbid, like a medical helicopter is just like, good morning. Like it's just not very ideal. You don't want that happening, you know?
And disclaimer, like, I mean, even us, like, we've flown, we've flown in Toronto before. This was before things were established. But now you got kids who are just savage. They just do not care. Like, they're just going to throw their drone
like Billy
up,
Bishop is their home.
and they know.
Yeah.
Like, before, it was like the laws were really, like, iffy. But now it's, like, set in stone.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you know anyone that's been caught?
Just good morning, Billy Bishop Airport. Right over the water. Just
I don't know. Like,
no, but I think
stories.
the fine, I mean, if we continue talking, I can look up the fine, but I believe the fine is actually like
it's
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's a little sketchy.
And obviously you want to be very careful because if you do hit a plane and the plane goes down, there is going to be a very, very large issue.
Yeah. What do you think about those young savages spending
I admire
pushing
Savage.
the content that hard at a young age? What do you think about people chasing their passion,
I admire
or
it.
literally chasing medical helicopters for their youthful days?
I
Do you
think
think
the only
that's
thing,
a good idea?
I think the only thing would be with drones, especially, is just it's such a risky thing because you're involving other people's lives now. But I think I love to see a lot of younger filmmakers push the boundaries in terms of just sending it with everything, everything. Like, obviously we have more accessible tools now. Like when I started, I remember I was using the glide cam, but now we got gimbals that literally do the work.
Glide
for
cam,
you.
baby. I remember that.
But now being able to be different and is such a huge thing. And if you can be different in this field where you have so many tools at your disposal now that are so cheap, that's huge. Yeah.
Speaking on tools, now that you brought that up, as far as what you use, I know a lot of people are like, oh my god, what camera, what gimbal?
What's in your bag?
What's in your bag? You know, like kind of
2018.
memory cards. Yeah. So, do you want to just tell people what you're using? I guess as far as getting those immediate fans to kind of just understand real quick.
Canon T3i.
Yeah.
With the kit lens, I would
kit
hope.
lens only.
Super zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aperture just always open.
Yep.
If I'm
No
doing
matter how
portraits, I'm usually doing like an 85 mil 1.4.
Yeah. Maybe like 70 to 200. Just
like right in your face, under the chin.
Oh,
Good angles.
perfect. Great angles.
Do you plan on staying with Sony moving forward?
I think so.
He didn't even say what kind of
I feel
camera he
like-
had. You just revealed it.
Yeah, it's a good boy though.
Just like, do you plan on staying Sony? Like,
Yeah.
I think they're obviously ahead of the field, but I'm not a fanboy. I feel like a lot of like creators are kind of stuck into like wanting to be one brand. But for me, I go with whatever is going to be the top dog. Like
No,
whatever's gonna have
definitely.
the best. And right now, I feel like Sony's doing that. Maybe Panasonic, but right now for like my camera body is the A7S II. Fun fact, I actually like used part of like my OSAP to buy that camera.
shout out to the OSAP.
Yeah, I don't
Big
recommend
shout out
kids to do that, but
Ryerson
it was
Film
good.
School.
Can't
Yeah.
say I didn't
Shout out to
just do that.
One of the GH5 setup is literally
Yeah.
because of that.
Thank you, government.
But,
OSAP's very
yeah.
interesting. That's a whole nother topic.
It is,
Yeah.
So I'm using Sony right now.
What
We're
about the
looking
lens?
I use Canon lenses, but I don't recommend it. I feel
Okay.
like you should just use native lenses.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty good style though.
I don't use
Rugged.
autofocus, but
Yeah.
it is handy when you're using
Beneficial,
gimbals and stuff. So
And gimbals, okay.
yeah.
So preference on gimbals then, as far as stabilization goes, I've seen you not use a glide cam. I haven't seen you use a glide cam before.
Yeah.
You said you started on that. Though.
started using it, yeah.
So
But
what are
only
you
because
on
of-
as of current?
I use the Moza Air,
Mm-hmm.
and I only use it because it's super lightweight and it can fit my camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we even have a funny story about it. But when we went to the Ontario trip, I don't know.
Yeah.
Backstory, like both of these dudes are the
These
guys
dudes.
behind the Ontario trip and coming along to help.
The gimbal goblins.
The gimbal goblins running around on these.
Mitch running through the
canopy.
forest with Chelsea boots, hunched over, just like I can feel the thunderous footsteps
I
running
really
through the
felt like I
woods.
was holding an LMG, like just running through the woods, like trying.
Dude, you look
trying to chase,
extremely like a lumberjack.
JR's, like very nice steps, and then I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can hear my steps over anything currently.
Yo, we didn't even
Golf.
use the scene that you took like
Yeah,
15 tries.
And I
Yeah.
was sweating.
And I'm balancing on like a tree.
I'm sorry.
Can't move properly. I'm like, how do I get down? Maybe I'll
But, like,
play
just
that.
do-
Maybe I'll play that over that clip there.
Yeah. Or context, like there was a shot
Yeah.
that we're in the deep woods and we had this idea to have
Yeah.
Pat kind of balancing on this trunk.
Originally, you tried to get on the
Yes,
tree.
I couldn't.
And then I got on and we realized that it was
was
still
crazy.
pointless.
and I continued to tell Pat to do it.
Yeah, but hey.
We took like 15 tries and I didn't even end up using it for the
Yeah.
video. And
Sometimes that's how she
yeah,
goes.
that's how it happens.
Yeah.
So it goes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Moza Air, use just the
Yeah.
Moza Air, or have you used other gimbals before?
I used the crane before, but then I broke it, so I had to get a
Shed,
new one.
eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Moza Air was pretty fun to use. I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, the lightweight was definitely convenient. I'm pretty used to using the crane too, so
Mhm.
a little bit heavier. Has
Yeah,
its
I kinda-
benefits as far as the weight goes. Like it can hold a lot, but
Right.
then again, like the cameras that we're using aren't that heavy.
Exactly. So
If they were to make a Ronin S that was lighter and smaller, like the Moza Air, I think that would be a great idea. Just because
100%.
the Ronin S is a great gimbal. I've used it. We have it at the Funk Lab. It's great. But the thing is it's just heavy. But unfortunately, it's just so heavy.
It is. I tried.
So if they were to take a Moza and they were to shrink it, or sorry, if they take a Ronin and they were to shrink it like that, just make like another Ronin. But
because I'm not trying to put on a 70 to 200 millimeter lens on the Moza. on a Moza. Like what am I doing? Like I'm not gonna use a heavy setup.
It was just randomly shutting off too. Like that's always good.
Yeah.
Nothing like your gimbal just shutting off in the middle of an action shot, or spinning when you're like 100 feet up in a tree on a bridge that Mitchell Bonacorso broke while standing in the center of.
Oh yeah, we broke that bridge.
Yeah,
just too heavy of a lad.
What do you say to the people that fixate on technology and the equipment? Do you think that that's necessary to create good content, Jay Rowley?
It's not. Obviously, you see, so I'm not gonna be like that guy who's like, yeah, there's, who cares about the equipment? It's all about the story. Obviously, equipment's important. And I found like I had so many limitations when I started. I've only used 2 cameras in my kind of like in this filmmaking sphere of like the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But the reason I upgraded was because I was limited. But I feel like there is a sweet spot, meaning use a camera that you can learn from, but also has limitations when you're starting. That is so important because the limitations are what's going to make you have to be more creative. And this, I got back to this when I actually made a video called Disconnected. It was a short film shot entirely on a phone.
Yeah, that was great.
And that brought me back to when I first started because I had to be more creative. I had to think about story. And then once you build a base, once you've kind of used this camera to its full potential, then yes, upgrade. But I feel like there's a balance. But I hate people who constantly talk about cameras and equipment like it's the main thing, and it's not. Yeah.
They say that with the GH5, like the limitations regarding lighting. A lot of people usually say like, it's an opportunity for you to be creative, for you to be more in the lab regarding lighting, because it's a good way for you to learn lighting correctly versus just relying inherently on electronic light. So it's something that I often hear from like your GH5 fanboys.
Yeah,
no, it's true.
Because for me, like, my camera's like really good in low light. Like that's where it shines.
The S2 is just just a beast.
But also that takes away all the learning curve. Meaning, like there is some artistry in being able to play with lighting, playing with silhouettes, and you get a different feeling from that when like in terms of if you silhouette a subject, it's a different feeling than you being able to expose properly and the person's properly framed and properly exposed. It's a different feeling. Yeah.
As far as what some of the fans do ask you, I believe you did create a story today, and I do believe that you got some pretty dank questions.
Some interesting questions.
I think maybe we should address some of them. Maybe.
I'll try. Yeah. I'll try and answer some.
Did we write any of these down?
Listen, and also too, disclaimer, I love when people ask me questions and I can try and answer them, but it's tough when a lot of the questions are technical. It's just or stuff that you can really find online. I mean, like, I don't know.
Such as how do you adjust sound effects? How do you do your transitions and so on and so forth?
Yeah. How do you do a transition? Like, great question.
Just a transition.
Yes.
In general.
Yeah. How do you adjust the sound effects? How do you adjust the volume of the sound effects?
You can go about that a few ways. You can lower the music all the way and just amp the sound effects up. Yeah. Just like have it clip, especially. Ooh, clipping's good. On Instagram, I love that on Instagram.
Oh yeah, you gotta love the ear.
Just in it, like
when the bass just slaps and it's very much so like.
Yeah.
Speaking of
is that an Instagram
meme culture,
thing, or is
though,
that just people?
That's just a good troll.
Yeah,
it's
a great troll.
One of my favorite memes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions that was asked to you actually, Jay Rowley, is how do you live a good life?
Dude, that one hit me hard.
Yeah. How do you?
It had me thinking about everything.
Voice. How do you live a good life?
And what would you say the answer is?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Because you're expected. You better have an answer.
Yeah,
right now.
That's the thing. That's the thing too. But I feel like it's also I see why someone would ask that question just because. I think too, just because of the type of content I make, and it's the thing where a lot of the videos I'd say that I make are not negative. So I think a lot of people think that my life is the good life. Like I travel, but oh man, there's so much that goes on behind that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a question I think I'm still trying to figure out when we're tackling it as a serious topic, but also as like a thing where I see why someone would ask that question. Meaning, when they look at the videos I make, they assume that everything is always perfect, and it's like, it's not.
And then they create expectations, and then going off the Elon Musk video, the quote that you know, happiness equals reality minus expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow,
exactly.
you guys both remembered that. That's
Ooh,
cute,
dude.
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
That's cute. Speaking
That
on
was
your
a good
fans,
podcast.
speaking a bit on your
We're
fans,
big fanboys here.
I'm actually
fanboys.
going to start screen recording right now on my phone because I found something very unique.
Okay.
One of your fans actually
I don't know what
drew
this is.
you,
Oh,
and
I think it's a pretty
I think
pretty
it's accurate.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
would say
accurate.
so, too.
I'm just gonna pull it up now.
okay.
I'm gonna put it around the table here. By the way, this is JR's tagged photos. Of course, he
Yeah.
wouldn't. Oh, I mean, maybe. It will. So it says
Listen, and,
turning
like,
real life into movie.
is that the
and then-
description? Okay.
Yeah. So here we have JR. And,
I think that's
actually
that's my
pretty good
friend
drawing.
Gio's quote, but it's
Oh,
okay.
so he just ripped a quote from your friend.
Yeah.
from his
That's
backpack.
good.
Mine's story through my lenses, but it's okay.
Okay, so
Kind of similar.
he has, it actually looks really good when you guys are beside each other. You guys can like obviously.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, no,
That's
it looks pretty good like
Yeah,
that.
that's
that's
very good.
decent there.
And then we scroll over, and all of a sudden, you progressively look a little more Mexican, a little bit more Mexican.
Nothing wrong with that. Here.
Yeah, I mean, they did make your face like you did eat a couple more Big Macs there.
That's okay.
a little
But that's
chubby,
okay.
it's
Maybe he's
okay. I like
bulking.
that. Yeah, I'm
Couple
bulking a
days
little.
in the
I've been trying to
Ontario
bulk.
Highlands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is pretty memey.
Listen, and I'm happy someone
good
drew
meme.
something, because like, I mean,
I'm gonna zoom in on that.
it probably took him a
Great.
decent amount of time, so
Without a doubt.
props to him.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't deny the fact that it's just a little funny.
I would
It's a little
yeah.
funny, which is fun. Which
I'd
is
like
cool.
to also touch on the fact that he tagged Chris Howe in your photo for reasons unknown.
Shout out Chris Howe.
But that's okay because the drawing is super lit. Very memey. And speaking on
It
memes,
definitely
do
is.
you have a favorite meme? Because these film questions are great, but like you are a meme lord. I've
yeah.
seen you look at memes, and I know you watch them. So why not just tell us?
Would you ever create a meme account?
Maybe.
He has like a
Yeah, I have a
can't
Finsta,
expose the Finsta.
but I'm not gonna tell anyone the
Can't
name because I just do
expose
some.
the Finsta. All
some really
the
dumb stuff
people
on
just
that.
start going to it.
My favorite old meme, and I think it's because me and you connected to this meme first person. We were walking downtown and we saw some fresh spaghetti on the ground.
Oh yeah, the spaghetti meme, dude.
That's
There's
an
a-
OG meme.
Yeah.
the spaghetti.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some memes that like are current right now.
Yeah. I mean, I
don't
think the
know.
ones that aren't current are great too.
Yeah.
Sometimes like even if it's not like a designated meme, there's like really old funny videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, like it sounds bad, but the heavier kid doing a Star Wars battle to his
Yes,
camera
that is
back in
amazing.
like 2009.
Yeah.
Such a great video.
Well, memes are literally used for branding. And speaking of branding,
Yeah.
you've worked with a couple brands. What makes you decide to work with those brands?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So it's interesting. Like I'm always really iffy when it comes to making videos that are brand integrated. So are you touching on like videos that I end up not uploading, or just
So
videos
like
that
I
are
guess if you
integrated?
were to so for example,
'Cause I do
brands
too, I think,
brands
yeah.
contact you, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then from there you choose
This is an
what
interesting
brands.
topic too, because a lot of people don't touch on this. I feel like
Right.
a lot of filmmakers, but yeah.
So so the brand will contact you.
Yeah.
no one wants
And
to
then-
talk about how you make money.
Yeah,
It's
because
all-
Yeah,
they feel
it's
like
a
it
dark,
takes away
vulnerable.
somehow. But
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so from
also
there,
reality.
you get to make the decision whether or not you want to work with that brand or not.
Yeah.
And whether or not that matches your personal brand on YouTube
Yeah.
or Instagram. What dictates the decision as far as like, wow, I like this brand, I don't like this brand. Like, is there anything that you cater more towards as far as when
Yeah.
brands reach out to you? And if so, what is that?
I always go for the ones that are not they're not super crazy with the amount of push that they do online. So a huge example of this, and it's the moment I say the name, everyone's gonna know. The thing is, like, it's cool, but the thing is with a lot of brands is like, it's interesting. It's like I don't like doing integrations and stuff, and brands that have a lot of push to just no niche market. And so I love working with brands that really know the type of content I make, and really cater towards that and give me the opportunity as a creator to integrate their brand in a really interesting way. And because the only person who knows my audience well is myself, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work with companies that really get that and give me space to do what I want and not just have me as a talking point, then that's the biggest thing for me. Yeah.
Have any brands ever taken your work and not credited you, or even possibly just said, you know what, JR, I really like your video.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, your name will not be on it, and just uploads it and just
Sheets
completely sheets.
You know, it hasn't happened on a like, it only has happened on a sense of like, I've made a video that's just a creative project and then someone bites it, or someone like a company just shares it without tagging me. A lot of that happens online.
Okay.
And a lot of things happen where people will take like 10-second snippets of my videos and just like put it in there, and the only way I find out about it is when
your fans.
Yeah, someone tags me in it, and sometimes it's like people who have millions of followers and they just do not care. It's like, that's crazy.
What has been your best experience working with a brand?
Ooh. I'd say, and this is cool, I've always wanted to work with tourism boards, and I've finally been able to start working with tourism boards. And my best experience so far has been going to Brussels. The way
cool.
Yeah, like the when I travel, it's so raw at times, and it's cool when it's raw and you're doing things yourself.
For sure.
But it's interesting when you have people who have kind of looked at your content and have made a plan for you to go to places and experience things.
The itinerary
That focus on you, and
Definitely.
It's so cool. And then you get there and you meet the people behind it that put work into this, and it's this relationship where they care about the city, the place that you're going to, and then in return you feel that energy and you feel inclined to do your best to make something cool and show that place. Yeah.
And with that, you don't generally do these trips alone. You generally bring help with you. I remember on Brussels you brought Alician. I've personally checked out his content. Really sick.
Talented.
Yeah, cool guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you usually bring people. How does that generally work, and what kind of help do you generally have as far as like the assist that you get on some of these trips?
I always try and have a mesh of it, meaning it's funny, even touching on, we just wrapped up a project, me and both of you guys, going to Ontario Highlands, working with the Ontario Travel Tourism Board. I always like to have a mix. I like throwing in wild cards, like me and
like
Mitch.
Mr.
We like
Bonacorsa.
Yep, right there.
The gimbal goblin.
Oh yeah. But
So good.
I knew Pat. I know what Pat's capable of, but I always wanted to throw in someone who I've never met before because it's always a cool dynamic.
And
As
how was
long
it
as they're
like?
down.
It's a very loaded question, considering this is our podcast, and I'm asking you. But how does it feel working with those wild cards?
It always brings a different flair to it, and when you travel with people you've traveled before, you kind of know what to expect. But it's always I always think it's best when you go into a trip with a lot of like questions sometimes on what's going to happen, because that's usually when the best experiences, that's usually when the best stories come out.
Lots of trolls.
Yeah.
And trolling, just...
How does it feel to be your own boss on these trips? Like, you have all of the responsibility. You are the executive in this position, and for the incessant future, you are going to be the boss. How does it feel to have those responsibilities?
I feel
overwhelming.
I try not to think about it.
Because for those who don't know, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to, for the audience that doesn't know about Mr. J. Rowley, JR is notorious in the community for spending copious amount of time on your videos.
Right.
What do you think about that? Just part of the job, and that's just what you love, or?
I definitely think, so I'm going to tackle this in two parts. So I think going on the trips, especially, I don't get overwhelmed, because I try and make it in, like especially when I bring people on, I try and make it in a dynamic where it's just friends going on a trip. Because the moment you try and dictate people, the moment you try and make yourself seem like a boss, it's like the moment, like,
put them in like a category,
right?
Like they have to be a filmmaker.
Yeah,
like
exactly. I like when it's flowing. I like when it's that friendship environment, because then it translates to the video. It's genuine. It makes it feel like my videos. The goal for me is like, I don't want to show someone an experience. I want to make sure they feel like they were there with us.
Yeah.
And that adds to it is when there's that friend environment. And then touching on what it's like being your own boss, touching on like spending a lot of time on videos, it's a double-edged sword. I've tried to kind of figure out a sweet spot. A lot of people think that I enjoy editing always. Maybe it seems like that, because I do put a lot of work into it.
And you're amazing.
Trolling your style. Yeah.
But it's a thin line. It's like after 2 weeks of looking at something for so long, you lose so much motivation in it.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thing is, a lot of people won't realize is these projects, you know, they always expect me to make videos like New York and London, but unfortunately what happens is part of yourself, part of your soul gets sucked out.
Yeah.
I feel like when you work on a project for so long, you know, you take something out of you, and by the end of it, you don't even really have a connection to it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it's done and you put it out and you expect to have a feeling behind it, like you've accomplished something.
Right.
And obviously you're proud that you've put so much work into it, but by the end of it, it's like, yeah, like that's it.
Would
like,
you ever hire an editor? Was that something you'd ever
I've always
debate?
thought about that.
Because I know that's like a big controversial thing in the film community, as far as, you know, wanting to be able to film and edit your own videos, you know, maybe even giving up a portion of your style.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, would you ever consider getting an editor if
I think
things got crazy, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think if I find the right people, and that's what I've been trying to do, just surround myself with the right individuals, people who are talented, like yourselves, like Leishan. And I think the interesting thing would be for projects where I feel like it's more tedious and it's more formatted, so that I can focus on getting back to being creative and focus
the passion.
And pushing myself to make projects that are like passion projects, because that's where I have most
For
fun.
sure.
Yeah.
Totally off topic to that. Very more like light-spirited question, I think, is do you ever get really, really strange messages from your fans on DM that are just very next level wild? They're just weird, like, or even girls. Do you get any? Does JR get any girls off of Instagram?
This is behind the scenes information.
I don't know, man. Should we bring it to light? Like, do women message you on Instagram? Like, is this like a
quantifiable amount?
Because filmmaking is interesting in that sense, because it's just like you're not like, you know, it's just not, you're not playing a sport really. You're just you are following something that you love, which could be attractive,
right?
But at the same time, it's
and then
like,
also all the like, not like the
clout chasers.
Social media that goes behind it.
But yeah,
It's
ever
easy
get
to-
any messages? Any?
Yeah, at times, but it's easy to tell like what the person's
After.
what their ulterior motive is.
And this is where people get split, and I feel like the generations that aren't us take it out of context, because I think some people would say to you right now, there's no authenticity on the internet. The internet only causes, say, mental illness. But it's as illustration of all three of us in our careers on social media, it's how you use it. You can make dust friends online. You can meet friends that aren't worth your time, but you can also meet lifelong friends that you connect to all the time.
100%. We would have never have met.
Certainly. Neither of us in this room.
Yeah, literally.
It's also too, I think, like I have walls that I set up, and it's I always test to see if the person will break them down. Meaning, like for Pat, like when you first messaged me, and it's funny, we can go back to this, but like when you first messaged, I was so hesitant because I was always like really scared about like who I trust and who I would like want to continue to like talk to and
reasonably
like,
so.
Right. And the thing I noticed about you is that like there was a few things that like caught my eye. It was like, number one, you didn't put yourself in a position where you felt like you were like above someone. You also seemed like you were willing to learn, and you also would actively like go out to not only ask me questions about filmmaking, but just like kind of just talk as a friend. So like when we met up for the first time, it was so easy to connect. And I always try and find people like that. I
feel like
it's
that's
definitely
part of
harder,
the
but
process
it's
too. Always
possible.
learning in the film community, in any community, constantly trying to learn and
not thinking you're above.
Exactly.
And this is like, it's funny that we touch on this, because actually thinking back, this is a question I get a lot, is like a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers, when you start out, you obviously don't have a name for yourself. You know, you don't have anything kind of to show for yourself. So it's hard to kind of connect with people, because a lot of people online want to see like that you have a following, so that, let's connect then, let's work together. So a lot of people ask me, it's like, how do you find people like then? And so like that's why I wanted to like really mention that and touch on that.
Quickly wanted to bring up Bufferfest is coming up. You do have a film premiering. I don't know if I'm supposed to be releasing what the name of that is or what that is, but
the name's released, so like people will know.
So you excited about that? What are your thoughts on showing up there and
it's
premiering that
exciting.
film?
It's mixed feelings, because there was a deadline for it, which obviously things have deadlines. But it is bringing me back to a passion project. Again, it's not crazy with the editing, but it is a passion project. It's creative. It's something with an idea that I had for such a long time that I wanted to do, and I finally did it. And it's scary because I don't know how people are going to react to it, and I love that. Like, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I thought the edit was really good. I thought
that's very exciting for me. And speaking of passion, and to almost wrap this up, how do you find your inspiration, and what do you say to the individuals that bring up the capital I word to you? And what do you have to say about inspiration for yourself in general, but in particular your videos and your content?
Yeah, I think inspiration comes in waves, and I think you need to understand and deal with how you tackle it. And I think the interesting thing is, like, I think a lot of people fiend on it. Like, they need it, like 100% to be able to continue to make content. But I think you need to understand that there are going to be times when you're not inspired. There's going to be times where you don't want to make things, but you need to push past those points. And I think you even need to create things when you're in that mode. And because I think it's part of being creative, creative block, not being inspired. But also I think you need to be very careful with what you see online. And I think, and it sucks because the types of videos I make, it's obviously, yes, it's pretty positive. It's showing traveling, but
it's flawless.
Yeah. I'm always trying to show, though, that not that I'm better than someone, but more so like that I can do this and you can too. Traveling is possible. You can do it. You can experience these things, but not getting sucked into social media because, like you mentioned, like, it's easy for this type of culture to continue to develop where you see that people are having the best time of their lives, but you have to realize that this is like the 100% edited version of it. The videos that you see of me is 4 weeks into editing. I've cut out everything that was bad. I'm not showing anything that's negative. And I think people are scared. Oh yeah.
Except from eating shit from a tree in Guatemala.
I even added sound effects to that.
Just cracking rib sound effects. Big shout out to Epidemic Sound.
Bro, it was the perfect sound effect though. It's just kind of sketch, but but I do want to touch on that too, because the one thing I wanted to mention on this too is, like, what I've been battling with a lot lately is, now that more people have a lot of expectations on me and a lot more eyes on me, is being able to battle criticism and being able to continue to do what I love and not be swayed by people. Because for me, finding balance is hard, because I've been trying to understand where the line between doing what you're passionate about and taking time for yourself is. Because for me, like, mental health is such a huge thing, obviously, like touching on topics of it, making videos about it, but I've never really dove in on my own mental health. I struggle with a lot of things at times, but for me, I've been trying to understand that it's okay to take breaks. And I feel like I've been feeding into the culture of needing to make videos that are crazy all the time. And what ends up happening is it takes away a lot of my own mental health my own. So for me, it's like, yes, going back to inspiration, I think it's important to obviously have inspirational times, but you need to be able to push past those and not only rely on it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great quote too.
Yeah, it's very special, and I'm glad, JR, as someone who is established in your own passion, that you have the audacity to say those things, because I think a lot of people need to hear it. And I as a friend, I continue to do that, and I continue, for all of us to be open to those around us that need to reach out, because I think it's very important. And it's something that I'm extremely thankful for. Both of you, I know I'm comfortable with reaching out to. Pat, you've been here multiple times for me, and so Jared, thanks for pushing that message and not being not coming in here blazing down the door and saying that it's not the reality for you. So
100%. Perfect.
That about wraps it up, JR. Is there anything else you would like to say to all of those who come up to me and
even
say
for
that,
maybe beginner people?
Yep.
Just
I think for beginner people, going back to it, do not be afraid to put yourself in a vulnerable situation. Do not be afraid to share things about yourself, because when you're starting out, the only thing that people have to connect to you and your message is what you send out. So you want to be genuine. When you don't have a lot of opportunities to travel, please share stories about yourself, because that's the only way you're going to connect to other people, I think. So that's the only thing I'd say for people starting out. Just focus on those things.
Beautiful. Mr. Greenall.
Yeah, well, JR, thank you very much for being here.
No worries.
Extremely appreciate that. And thank you, Mr. Bonacorso, for hosting this. And
it's been great, and thank you everyone for listening. I would like to thank our corporate sponsor, Mr. Bassett Sultani,
Bassett
aka
Acid.
Visual Slayer.
Young
Please
visual
use
slayer.
our promo code ADHD podcast for 100% off all photography.
Photo shoots.
Be sure to let him know that we sent him,
Yeah.
and all the best.
Yep.
Thank you so much.